Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. In the last part, Billy and Kimberly took charge for a bit, and now it's time for the Red Man himself, Jason Lee Scott, who is honestly one of my least favorite Red Rangers. Because Red Rangers have always been the kind of generic, I'm a hero kind of character, more or less with some variation in there. And Jason's just kind of boring. And this is actually the final out of the main 5 stages, so make sure you bring the Ranger you're probably best with to this stage. I brought Jason because it's the last one. Leader should possibly get the final honor and such. But Jason is actually pretty decent in terms of fighting, because he actually has some pretty quick punches compared to some of the other characters. I still like Billy overall due to his combos, but Jason's pretty good. And in terms of his actor, Jason is played by Austin St. John, who, yet again, as usual, hasn't done much outside of Power Rangers. Out of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-ish roles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are Power Rangers, so that says a bit, I suppose. But honestly, his actor did the best he could, because if you go back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Austin tried. He really did try. It's just the fact that the entire show hasn't aged the best. Mind you, no matter who you are, if you watch the original Power Rangers show, you'll notice that they really just not give one shit when it came to one part of the show, and that's the morphing sequence. They were wearing a green shirt over a green screen, and they just were forced to say, like, Tyrannosaurus! It's almost exactly how it says it, too. Really, though, this final level, it's actually, I think, the longest level in the game, but it's not that hard, at least the non-morph section. It can get kind of annoying later on, but we'll get to that when we cross that bridge. Now, you may have noticed I've been kind of going over the entirety of the show while doing this game, and there's one thing I've neglected to mention: the comedy relief. Don't get me wrong, the show as a whole is pretty goofy, both in terms due to age and due to the villain just being kooky. But there were 2 characters that existed purely for comedy relief. Well, technically 3, but Alpha 5 was kind of boring. And those are Vulcan School, the school bullies. And they and their actors are actually a bit of an interesting story. More on that in a moment, because, to put it bluntly, it's Morphin time. Hey, look, a Ranger finally using the proper sprite. Yeah, all the Ranger sprites in this are recolors of Jason's, which is kind of lazy, but I can see why they did that, because that's probably a lot of extra memory they needed to take up. And Jason is probably the blandest out of the 5 main Rangers, because his sword swing has average range, but it does decent tower, but that's about it. Nothing really interesting about him. Though, admittedly, his design out of all the Rangers, rather, or the original 6 at least, is probably my favorite. Heck, if I recall, the Green Ranger from Zhu Ranger and Mighty Morphin was just a recolor of this with the extra gold stuff. Anyway, back to Vulcan School. Vulcan School were those 2 kind of dick bully guys that everyone was friends with but hated at the same time, and no one ever really took them seriously. They were just those kind of like, heh, you're lame, kind of bullies. You all know the one. You had one of those in elementary school. And what's interesting about them is that they, I think, had some of the longest appearances in the series, because in body, they lasted from the original series all the way to, in some cases, Lost Galaxy, full out in space, though. And Bulk, actually, well, first off, Bulk was played by Paul Schreier. Yet again, a good amount of Power Rangers roles. He was even in the Kamen Rider adaptation, I think maybe even VR Troopers. But he eventually, I believe, became a producer on the Neo Saban era. I'm not entirely sure about that. I know he was some role besides just having a decent acting role in The Samurai. And that's pretty impressive, because he's directed some episodes of the shows, even, which is pretty cool. And Bulk, honestly, is the one I remember the most, just because he tried to be decent. In fact, they actually had, Vulcan School had the best amount of character development out of the entire characters on that show, because they actually ended up being decent citizens by the end of the series. Or at the end of their appearances in the series, really. And then there's Skull. Skull was the kind of scrawny but tall kind of bully, the one that's just kind of a douche. And he is played by Jason Narby, who, aside from Jason David Frank, who would later play the 6th Ranger, who is for some reason not in this game, but is in the Genesis version, which is really strange, by the way. He is possibly the most successful because he's now, I think, a film professor over at the University of Chicago. Assistant professor in the theater department of the Concordia University. Sorry. I do have, like, little actor profiles on the side just so I can have this information 100% straight, which I just find interesting. And he also returned in Power Rangers Samurai for a cameo role. For the most part, the skull in that series was done by his character's son in the series, which was pretty funny, actually. And Skull, I actually really liked because he was funny. In the wrong way, but he was fun. Bulk and Skull, though, are probably the most memorable part of the original series, aside from the really bad dubbing and, honestly, the Megazord sequences. Because let's be honest, everyone loves the Megazord in Mighty Morphin. It just looks so cool. It's not my favorite Megazord design, but it's up there. Because that's actually one thing about Mighty Morphin, at least the first season. I don't recall much about the second season or third season. The Rangers sometimes waited until almost right before they had to go into the Megazord to morph. Because they actually did a good amount of fighting on their own. Which is actually pretty impressive, but it also means that there are times you're just kind of looking at actors go, huh, huh. Which, mind you, there are some... that was a voice crack, wow. There are some impressive fighting scenes in the series, because I think almost every single one of the 5 Rangers had some amount of martial arts training. But it's just really impressive to look at. Because that's actually what the main reason I actually watch Power Rangers nowadays, if it's not for the old series due to nostalgia or just to laugh at how bad it is. It's because sometimes the action sequences are actually pretty good. I still remember some of the SPD action sequences I love. Because there's actually a good amount of stuff going on there that's not too visually distracting, but you still get entranced by what's going on. Heck, one of my favorite action sequences in the entire franchise is actually from SPD. The Shadow Ranger's first fight, where he has to take out those 100 robot things that I can never remember the name of from SPD, but they're the basic mooks. Honestly, I don't remember the names of any of the basic mooks, now that I think about it, aside from the putties. I guess I technically remember the ones from Die Ranger, the Katboros. But otherwise, well, actually, no. What's it called? Mystic Force, they were Warlocks. Either way, back to the game, because honestly, the stage up to this point was pretty bland. This part of the stage is a giant laser firing at you that's right out of Mega Man 04. And if you get hit by it, I don't think it's instant kill, but it does a shitload of damage, so whenever you hear that siren, get onto one of these platforms or duck in one of those little pits. The laser also hurts enemies, as you can see, which is very nice. And once you get to the end, you just have to destroy the thing firing the laser. I want to say this is trying to adapt an episode, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Because honestly, Mighty Morphin episodes kind of blended together after a while. Until Tommy showed up, but that's just because the Green Ranger probably had the best plot line in the entire series. Or at least the Mighty Morphin Season 1 era. Really though, this stage, pretty easy. I like the look of it though. Although you cannot destroy that one laser, which bothers me. If there, well, I guess I suppose if it goes over back towards the right, ever, you could probably wall jump to try and hit it, but I wouldn't advise that. The stage is also pretty long, as you can probably tell. Also, if it's not obvious, obviously I use the bombs on every single boss, but I recommend you save them for the boss, because unless you get that little item that looks like a lightning bolt in the jar, you're not getting another one. Either way, monster of this stage is the Shadow Warrior. Or no, Dark Warrior, sorry. And he's pretty interesting. In fact, he has a few different attack patterns. He likes to jump all over the place no matter what, and drop bombs. Well, his other attacks don't depend on what his weapon is. If it's the sword, he just tries to swipe at you. He can also have, I think, a type of lance, which he does a different attack with. And that's about it, I believe, even. I don't even think there's a third item. My general strategy, though, just hit him. He, more often than not, will jump right over you and leave himself very open to attack afterwards, so just keep an eye on where he is. Make sure you don't get hit, and you should do fine. It's a very easy boss. Kind of disappointing. Oh, that's what he has. He has one of those little chain whip things. That can hurt. But it's so easily telegraphed, you should not give him a chance to use it. And as I was saying, just dodge his attacks well enough and hit him, and he should go down fairly quickly. I love this boss theme, I'll tell you. Thankfully, from this point on, the game's going to be a bit different, so I'll have more to talk about. But that's stage 5. Not too hard. It can get a bit annoying at some points just due to the amount of enemies there are, but the boss is easy enough to the point where it shouldn't give you much trouble. I heard that voice clip cut out there, game. Either way, areas 6 and 7 are actually entirely different stages. You actually get to play as the Megazord against various monsters. First off, we got Mutitus. The way that these things work is that it's somewhat similar to a fighting game, actually. You still have your same basic controls, jumping, I think it's X, which was your bomb, is now your special attack, which is done by the power meter on the bottom below your health bar. The higher it is, the different the attack is. You can do the eye lasers, a little sword slash, light the ground on fire, or ultimately just that gigantic energy sword swing. I do recommend charging it up to max just so you can get the most damage out of it. But the enemy can do the same as well with their attacks, and they can really hurt, as I think he's about to do fairly soon. Yep, ow, 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 ow. My best strategy for this, don't go for combos. The upswing that you can do just through your combo finisher, use that because it does the most damage and also has the shortest combo time, so you can just do your damage as quickly as you can. And then you do the classic. The Mutitus, not a very hard fight. He's there to get you introduced to the mechanics, but there's still passwords here in case you need them. The next stage, though, if you're new to the game, can be a bit annoying. First off, we're right in front of, what's it called? Rita Repulsa's palace, which looks oddly like something out of Cool World, and she sends out her own Zord Cyclopsis, being piloted by Goldar, his only appearance in the game, and even then we never see the guy. Same basic strategy, though. Let your power charge up, do your up slashes in order to do the most damage. You can guard, but I forget if it's a separate button press, or if you just need to hold down or backwards like in a fighting game. Basic strategy is the same, just do that and you should do fine. He does hurt and you want to be careful because, I'll tell you right now, first off, this is the final boss. And like most final bosses, he might be multi-phased. And the health that you have from one phase carries over to the other, so try to minimize your damage. And there he goes. Alright, let's finish you off. Well, I didn't say anything. Oh, wow, you blocked me. And you grew extra spikes. That's all he does. And now he's a bit more aggressive and he has a bit more attacks, but honestly, I had an easier time with this phase than I did the first two. Because he was just loving to jump into my upswings. He does have a bit more damage behind him, and I think he even has a few more deadly attacks, but really, as long as you use your power wisely, you should do fine. It's a fairly easy boss. Come on. Would you stop that? Dicks. welcome to the Juice Bars. This is actually where they spent a good amount of their time in the show. On the left there, you can actually see Vulcan School. Vulcan's with the leather jacket. Skull is the one doing the What Is Love head bop. And if you look just above Jason on the right, you can actually see the Juice Bar's owner, Ernie. I don't know why I remember Ernie's name, because he didn't really do much in the show. He was just there for some funny lines every now and then. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo. How is it? It's a bit bland, but I still think it's fun. The soundtrack's fantastic. The boss fights are still interesting, and honestly, I do really like the final 2 stages, because that could have been a full-fledged game on its own. I probably still would have loved it, or at least that's how they could have done more boss fights in the game. If you want to play it, I do think it was only ever on Super Nintendo. I have to look that up, though. But this isn't the only Power Rangers game we're doing right now. I'm actually doing a bit of a mini marathon of 3 of them. I'm doing this, the movie game on Super Nintendo, and then the movie game on Sega Genesis, though the Sega Genesis one is a bit different from the others because I'm doing that co-op with someone. So look forward to that. And there is actually a bit of a thing we get for beating the game. At the end of the credits, 3 passwords are going to show up. 1007, 0411, and 1212. These are passwords for the Megazord battles. However, they're for 2-player. You can actually play as the Megazord, Mutitus, or both versions of Cyclopsis. The Megazord is better than both of them in every way, but you can still do it. And then there was a sound test in the Japanese version by pressing A, B, 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 X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y. But you have to hold the select button when you're doing that too. But honestly, I think this is a fun enough game. Worth your time at least for 1 playthrough. I do believe it was only ever on the Super Nintendo, though. Yes, but there was versions on other game systems that were completely different, like Game Boy, Sega Genesis, and such. This is the different, this is this version, none of the others are like this. I like it, but with that, I'm gonna end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie for the Super Nintendo. See you guys then.